Black screen fades into an eerie night scene. Emily's house. Lights flickering. A shadow moving outside. They thought they could destroy our bridge. Take our land, silence us forever. Cut to security footage. An unknown figure trying to break in. But they had no idea we were about to bring down their entire empire. Flash of FBI agents storming into an office. Arrest being made. Files slammed onto a table. A corrupt HOA, a powerful billionaire, and a revenge they never saw coming. Cut to Emily smirking, holding a USB drive. The mastermind caught handcuffed as sirens blare. Narrator, hooking. They took everything from us now. We're taking it all back. HOA destroyed our bridge. Finds FBI at her door. Watch till the end, because justice? Oh, it gets served. It started with a dream. My sister, Emily, had always longed for a place of solitude and peace, somewhere she could escape from the noise of city life. After years of saving, she finally found it. A charming, secluded island home, perched on a lush green stretch of land, separated from the mainland by a narrow river. The property came with a sturdy, privately owned bridge, the only means of getting to and from the house. It wasn't just a home, it was her sanctuary. But that paradise came at a cost. Despite her home being legally exempt from the local homeowners association, HOA, since the island had been privately owned before the HOA was ever formed, they still tried to assert control over her. At first, it was small things. Notices in her mailbox, invitations to voluntarily join the HOA, letters requesting mandatory contributions for things she had no stake in. She ignored them. That was her first mistake. Emily thought that if she didn't engage, they would eventually give up. But the HOA wasn't known for giving up. They were known for taking. The harassment started small, just like the letters. First, it was a friendly neighbor visits, where members of the HOA board would drop by, pretending to be welcoming while casually mentioning how much easier things would be if she just signed the membership papers. When she politely declined, the smiles faded, replaced with thinly veiled warnings. Then came the fines, bogus infractions for things that didn't apply to her. Your lawn violates HOA regulations. Her house was on an island. She had no lawn. Your mailbox isn't up to HOA standards. Her mail was delivered to a P.O. box. You have unauthorized structures on your property. She hadn't built anything new. Emily laughed it off at first, but then things escalated. One morning, she woke up to find the tires on her car slashed, her mailbox torn off its post, and a crude note taped to her front door. You're not above the rules. She reported it to the police. They took a report, but didn't seem too interested. The HOA had deep connections in the community, and getting authorities to go against them was like trying to break through concrete with a spoon. And then they set their sights on the bridge. The first formal notice arrived in a fancy embossed envelope, the HOA logo pressed into the seal like it was a decree from some self-appointed monarchy. Emily didn't even open it at first. She tossed it on the counter and let it sit there for 2 days before finally giving in. The letter was signed by Margaret Delacroix, the HOA president, a woman notorious for her ruthless tactics. The letter stated that her bridge was an unapproved structure and needed to be removed immediately. Emily felt her stomach tighten. She owned that bridge. It was part of the deed, the only legal access to her property. She wasn't just going to roll over and let them take it. Fuming, she called the number on the letter. Margaret answered, her voice dripping with fake politeness. "Oh, Emily, so glad you called. I was hoping we could have a civilized discussion about the bridge situation." "There's nothing to discuss," Emily snapped. "The bridge is mine. You have no authority over it." Margaret sighed, mocking disappointment. "Emily, dear, we're only looking out for the safety of the community. That bridge is, well, let's just say it's not exactly in compliance with modern safety standards." Emily clenched her jaw. "It's perfectly safe." "Well, our engineers don't think so." "Engineers?" Emily's blood ran cold. Margaret continued, her voice cool and calculated. "The HOA has already made arrangements for its removal. It's a danger to the neighborhood, and we can't have that liability hanging over our heads." Emily could barely breathe. They were serious. "Try it," she said through gritted teeth. And I will sue you so hard your grandchildren will feel it. Margaret chuckled. Oh, Emily, lawsuits take years. Bulldozers take hours. The line went dead. Emily didn't sleep that night. She double-checked property laws, called her lawyer, and even emailed local officials, demanding they intervene. But she kept hitting brick walls. The city claimed no jurisdiction, and the police shrugged it off as a civil dispute. Then the surveillance cameras went offline. Emily had installed cameras at the entrance of the bridge. She wasn't stupid. She knew the HOA was capable of dirty tricks. But when she checked the footage, it was nothing but black screens. That was her only warning. At 4 a.m., she woke to a deep, echoing crash. She bolted out of bed, ran to the front porch, and saw it, a construction crew, tearing down the bridge with heavy machinery. No! Stop! She screamed, running toward them. One of the workers, a man in a reflective vest with HOA-branded equipment, turned to her. He didn't even look guilty. Sorry, ma'am. Just following orders. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the wooden planks collapse, the railing snap, and the only connection to the mainland crumble into the river below. She was trapped. The next morning, Emily stood on the edge of the island, staring at the ruins of what had once been her lifeline to the outside world. She could still hear the roar of the machinery, still feel the vibrations in her bones. The sight of the twisted wreckage in the water made her stomach churn. And then she saw Margaret Delacroix standing on the mainland, smug and victorious, arms crossed over her chest. Emily's fists clenched. You're going to pay for this. Margaret simply smiled. Oh, sweetheart, she said, her voice full of mock sympathy. How exactly? Do you plan to do that from all the way over there? Emily was officially trapped on her own property, and the HOA thought they had won, but they had no idea what was coming next. They had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Emily stood at the ruined edge of the bridge, fists clenched so tightly her nails dug into her palms. She had never felt so powerless. The water below rushed violently, carrying away splintered pieces of wood, remnants of her only connection to the mainland. The early morning fog coiled around the wreckage, giving the whole scene a haunting finality. Margaret Delacroix, standing on the other side, still wore that infuriating smirk. You'll regret this, Emily hissed, her voice low but lethal. Margaret tilted her head, feigning concern. Oh, dear, how will you even file a complaint? You don't seem to have a way to leave your little island anymore. Emily's blood boiled. They thought they had won. She wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. She turned on her heel and stormed back to her house, ignoring Margaret's laughter echoing in the cold morning air. Inside, she tore through her paperwork. Deeds, property rights, everything proving the bridge was hers. But she already knew the truth. The police wouldn't help. The city wouldn't interfere. The HOA was too powerful in this town. Her only option? Find a way to fight back. She grabbed her phone, heart hammering, and dialed her brother, me. When I answered, Emily's voice was deadly calm, a sign she was barely holding back pure rage. They destroyed it, she said. I blinked. Destroyed what? The bridge, she whispered. They sent a crew in the middle of the night and demolished it. For a moment, I didn't speak. My mind raced. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was destruction of private property. I exhaled sharply. All right, we're going to nail them for this. Emily snorted bitterly. You think the cops care? I already tried. The city won't help either. I hesitated. She was right. Local law enforcement was useless. The HOA had deep pockets and even deeper connections. If we wanted justice, we had to go higher. Leave it to me, I said. I'll find a way. I wasn't just saying that. If the HOA thought they could bully my sister, they were about to find out exactly how wrong they were. I spent the next 48 hours digging into everything I could find about the HOA. Public records, financial statements, lawsuits filed against them. It didn't take long before I found something interesting. Buried deep in a local court archive, I found a half-buried lawsuit from 3 years ago. A former homeowner had accused the HOA of fraudulent fines and illegal property seizures. The case was settled out of court. That wasn't a red flag. That was a giant neon sign flashing corruption. Then, I found something even worse. The HOA's financial statements had huge discrepancies. Money going missing, strange transactions listed under administrative fees, and large payments to unnamed accounts. They weren't just power-hungry bullies. They were criminals. I immediately sent everything to Emily. She called me within minutes, her voice trembling with excitement. "Do you realize what this means?" I grinned. "It means we're about to take them down." We needed proof. Emily and I decided to go straight to the source, the HOA's own office. Emily, being trapped on her island, couldn't exactly sneak in, but I could. That night, I parked outside the HOA's headquarters, a sleek, modern glass building that looked more like a corporate office than a neighborhood organization. I wasn't planning anything illegal, but I did plan to poke around. The front door was locked, of course, but as I walked around the side of the building, I spotted a janitor taking out the trash. I waited until he stepped inside, then casually grabbed the door before it clicked shut. I was in. The office was empty, dimly lit by the glow of computer monitors and cubicles. I kept my footsteps silent, moving quickly. Then I found Margaret Delacroix's office. Her door was unlocked. Inside, I spotted a filing cabinet half open, stuffed with thick folders. I pulled one out and flipped through it. My heart nearly stopped. Fake property violations. Fraudulent fees charged to homeowners. Bank records showing money transfers to offshore accounts. This wasn't just mismanagement. This was massive-scale financial fraud. I took as many pictures as I could, backing up everything to a secure drive, and then I made one phone call. The next morning, we walked into the nearest FBI field office with all the evidence. At first, the agent at the front desk looked bored, barely glancing up from his computer. "You're here to report crime?" I set the thick folder of documents on his desk. He raised an eyebrow, flipping to the first few pages. Then his eyes widened. "Wait here," he said, disappearing into the back. Minutes later, a senior agent stepped out, his face unreadable. "Tell me everything." Emily and I laid it all out. The fraud, the illegal fees, the offshore accounts, the bridge destruction. By the time we finished, the agent leaned forward, his expression dead serious. "This," he said, tapping the folder, "isn't just HOA corruption. This is federal crime." We exchanged a glance. "What happens next?" Emily asked. The agent stood. "We're taking them down." The moment we handed over the evidence, the atmosphere shifted. Before, it had felt like we were fighting a battle alone. Now, there were forces in motion bigger than we could have imagined. The senior FBI agent, a no-nonsense man named Agent Lawson, sat across from us in the sterile government office, his fingers tapping against a pile of documents we provided. Each tap felt like a countdown. "We're going to launch a full-scale investigation," he said. "But we need to move carefully. People who deal with this much money, they don't go down without a fight." Emily nodded, her jaw clenched. "They've already gone too far." Lawson's eyes darkened. "And if what you're saying about the bridge is true, they've committed more than just financial crimes." I exhaled slowly. "What happens now?" Lawson stood, gathering the files. "Now, we watch, we listen, and when the time is right, we strike." As we left the FBI office that day, I could feel in my bones. The storm was coming. The first cracks in the HOA's armor started to show within a week. At first, it was subtle. HOA board members whispering among themselves during meetings. Margaret Delacroix's usual smug arrogance started to fade, her sharp eyes darting suspiciously at anyone who spoke too softly around her. Then the real chaos began. The HOA's bank accounts were frozen. A surprise audit was launched by the IRS. Several board members started receiving formal letters of investigation. Margaret's tight little kingdom was crumbling, and she knew it. Emily, still stranded on the island, but watching everything unfold through online news reports and neighborhood gossip, couldn't stop grinning. Then one morning, we received an unexpected message. An anonymous tip landed in Emily's inbox. "I have information. Meet me at 10 p.m. behind the community center." Alone, it was risky. but we had to take the chance. That night, I arrived at the deserted community center, my heartbeat thrumming in my ears. The air was thick with tension, the streetlights flickering ominously. A figure stepped out from the shadows, one of the HOA's own board members. I recognized him immediately. Daniel Carter. He looked around nervously before shoving his hands deep into his coat pockets. His face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead. "You have no idea how deep this goes," he muttered, voice low. I folded my arms. "Then start talking." Carter hesitated, then exhaled sharply. The HOA isn't just scamming homeowners. They're laundering money. Big money. I stiffened. This was bigger than we thought. "They use fake property fines to funnel cash into offshore accounts," he continued. "They bribe city officials to look the other way. And Margaret? She's not the top of the chain. She answers to someone else." That last part sent a chill through my spine. Who else was involved? Before I could press him further, headlights flashed across the lot. Carter panicked. "I shouldn't be here," he hissed. "They'll kill me if they find out I talked to you." He shoved a USB drive into my hand. "This has everything. Use it." Then he was gone, disappearing into the darkness. I glanced down at the USB. Whatever was on here, it was going to be explosive. 2 days later, it happened. The quiet suburban streets of the HOA-controlled neighborhood erupted into chaos as black SUVs rolled in, lights flashing. FBI agents in tactical gear stormed the HOA headquarters, moving with deadly precision. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, whispering in hushed, excited voices. Margaret Delacroix was caught mid-meeting, standing in front of the HOA board, her face frozen in shock as 2 federal agents approached her. "Margaret Delacroix," one agent announced, pulling out a warrant. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, money laundering, and destruction of private property." Margaret's face went red, then deathly pale. This is a mistake." The agent's grim stare said otherwise. The moment the cuffs snapped around her wrists, the entire neighborhood erupted in whispers. Years of corruption, extortion, and fear-mongering? Over. But even as they dragged her away, I saw something in her eyes. Not fear. Something more dangerous. She wasn't just scared. She was angry, and she wasn't going down without a fight. Margaret may have been in cuffs, but her influence wasn't gone yet. The night after the arrest, Emily called me, her voice shaking. "I think someone's watching the house," she whispered. I felt ice creep up my spine. Then a loud bang echoed over the line. "Emily," I yelled. Static. Then her breathless voice. Someone tried to break in. I didn't waste a second. I grabbed my keys and sped toward the coastline, where Emily's house sat on the island. By the time I arrived, she had barricaded herself inside, clutching a fire poker like a weapon. Outside, tire tracks vanished into darkness. Someone had tried to silence her. Someone inside the HOA still had power. But they'd made one mistake. They didn't scare us. They just made us angrier. And now, we weren't just going to take them down. We were going to make sure they never got back up again. The night someone tried to break into Emily's house, we knew one thing. This wasn't over. The FBI had Margaret Delacroix in custody, but someone still had enough power to send a warning. The next morning, I met with Agent Lawson at a local diner. His face was grave. "We dug deeper," he said, sliding a folder across the table. Margaret wasn't the one calling the real shots. I opened it, my stomach twisting as I saw the name on the report. Gregory Lancaster, CEO of Lancaster Development Corporation, a massive real estate company with deep political ties. He's been using the HOA as a front. Lawson continued. Margaret was just his puppet. He laundered millions through fake fines, inflated construction projects, and property seizures. Emily leaned forward, her hands gripping the edge of the table. So Margaret, she was covering for him? Lawson nodded. And now that she's caught, Lancaster knows the walls are closing in. If he tried to have Emily silenced, that means he's getting desperate. A chill ran down my spine. We weren't just dealing with a corrupt HOA anymore. We were up against a powerful businessman with everything to lose. And desperate men were the most dangerous of all. Emily wasn't just going to sit around and wait for Lancaster to make another move. She wanted to hit back. Hard. If he's laundering money, she said, pacing in her living room, then that means his accounts he doesn't want anyone to find. I frowned. Yeah, but how we find them? She smirked. We don't. She turned her laptop around. A chat window was open. A single message stood on the screen. Let me handle it. Dante. I blinked. Who the hell is Dante? Emily grinned. A very, very good hacker. I stared at her. Emily, you're telling me you just called a hacker? She shrugged. Desperate times. I rubbed my temples. You do realize it's illegal, right? Her smirk widened. Not if no one catches us. Before I could argue, her laptop pinged. Dante had found something big. Offshore accounts, wire transfers, dirty land deals, and most importantly, proof that Lancaster ordered the bridge's destruction. Emily's eyes burned with fury. We're taking him down. One way or another, we handed everything over to Agent Lawson. And then we set a trap. Lancaster was careful. He had powerful friends. If we wanted him to slip, we needed to bait him into making a mistake. So Emily did something risky. She made a call to Lancaster. Mr. Lancaster, she said, her voice cold, I know what you did. Silence. Then a quiet chuckle. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into, he said. Emily's grip on the phone tightened. I have proof, enough to bring you down, but I'm willing to talk. A beat of silence. Then, come alone. Midnight. The abandoned marina. As soon as she hung up, we called the FBI. The trap was set. The abandoned marina was silent, the air thick with tension. Emily stood at the dock, a USB drive clutched in her fingers. Footsteps echoed from the shadows. Lancaster stepped forward, flanked by two armed men. I admire your bravery, he said, voice smooth as silk. But this was a mistake. Emily smirked. No, your mistake was underestimating me. That's when the floodlights blazed on. FBI agents poured in from all directions. Gregory Lancaster, put your hands where I can see them. Agent Lawson's voice boomed. For a second, Lancaster just laughed. Then he ran. Chaos erupted. His men pulled guns, but the FBI was faster. Within seconds, they were on the ground, handcuffed. Lancaster made it halfway to his car before Emily stepped in front of him, a stun gun in her hand. He skidded to a stop, eyes widening. You wouldn't. Emily smiled. Watch me. The stun gun crackled. Lancaster collapsed. Game over. The trial was swift. Margaret Delacroix, facing decades in prison, turned on Lancaster to save herself. With her testimony, the entire HOA corruption scheme was exposed. Lancaster? He lost everything. His assets seized. His company dismantled. His political allies abandoned him. He was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison. And the HOA? Dissolved. Every corrupt fine, every stolen dollar, returned to the homeowners. The bridge? Rebuilt. Emily stood at the shoreline, watching construction crews. For the first time in months, she smiled. She turned to me. We did it. I exhaled, looking at the sun rising over the water. Yeah. And for the first time in a long time, peace had finally returned.